in Hong Kong for the last generation.
On MakeTheMoreChoice.com, the Republican candidate for governor.
Have sexual relations with
I realize that this is something he is
We're going to
inherently.
be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Good morning, Cleveland. Welcome to another edition of Backfire with myself, Steve Doball, Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Testy, 1, 2. Testy, 1, 2. 1, 2. All right, I guess my mic is working. Anyway, it's been another exciting week in the news politically. I guess we've buried Russia now. I mean, do we have any more investigations going on about Russia?
Yeah, I suspect so.
Oh. What's the investigations for now?
Well, we now know that the president's former campaign manager had to disclose an additional $17.5 million in payments from Ukrainian and Russian sources that he had failed to disclose previously.
What was his name?
Paul Manafort.
Who's not with the campaign anymore, who left going on a year ago. Was only with them about 3 months.
And what did he do?
Turned his campaign around, as I recall.
Here's the thing. Are we going to be investigating Senator Claire McCaskill now, too, Franklin? Are you going to call for that?
Feel free.
Well,
feel free.
Because she said, now I'm going to read you this.
Hey,
this
here we
is
go.
March 2nd, 2017. I've been on the Armed Services Committee for 10 years. This is this spring. No call or meeting with Russian ambassador ever. Ambassadors call members of the Foreign Relations Committee. But here's a tweet she sent out in January 30th, 2013. Off to meeting with Russian ambassador. Upset about arbitrary, cruel decision to end all U.S. adoptions, even those in process. Now, we knew that back a couple of months ago. But now we've found out that she attended a black tie reception at the ambassador's home in November 2015. She was photographed at the event. And she forgot about that. Well, if we treat her like we treated Jeff Sessions,
what did I just
then
say,
she
John?
was in collusion.
There you go, arguing with yourself again.
Here's my point. I'm reasonable enough to say she forgot. She wasn't clear. Let's move on. We've got important things to do.
He forgot he'd been paid $17 million.
Won't turn loose.
And you think that's
equivalent?
He's
not in the campaign or the administration.
That's equivalent to someone forgot a party they went to.
Or the administration, Franklin. Neither one.
How about the lady who was serving as the primary broker for the Trump Tower in Miami, who posted herself as his Russian arm in media, and who sold $44 million worth of condos to Russians to keep his business afloat? Should we investigate
what part
that?
Of that's illegal?
I didn't say it was illegal. I said, should we investigate the president who came out in the media and said he wanted the Russians to hack his opponent?
Wasting time. Hey,
should we investigate that?
Voters, if you're worried about your job, if you're worried about all these things, terrorism, make sure you vote for Franklin's people who are only worried about Russia.
I'm glad you brought that up, as your party just tried to pass another massive tax cut for the people at the top and stick it to working people.
What was it?
3.5% tax reduction for people making more than $250,000 a year.
Who pays taxes in America?
People who are over 50 are going to get a 500% increase in their premiums.
You're talking about Obamacare?
No, I'm talking about the new Senate plan.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Franklin. Let's talk about that. Let's use your standards. I want you all to know I'm only going to do this because I am adopting the Democrat standards. But Franklin and his party have the blood of 80,000 people on their hands, because that's how many people died because of Obamacare. That's what we can do with their statistics. You want me to read it to you? Age-adjusted death rates in the U.S. have consistently declined for decades, but in 2015, unlike in 19 of the previous 20 years, they increased. For the first time since 93, life expectancy fell. Had the mortality rates continued to decline, like they had previously after the ACA implementation in 2014 and 2015, 80,000 fewer Americans would have
John,
died.
and what is your
You
party's
have the blood of 80,000 people on your hands, Franklin.
John.
Now, is that fair? No, it's
Yes,
not
John.
fair.
It
No,
is
it's
fair.
not fair, and that's what your people are doing. And that's what's so bad in politics right now. I'm going to say that's not fair. I can make the argument. I can show that 80,000 people died for the first time in 20 years, an increase in mortality.
And what
But
are-
I'm decent
and what are
enough
you gonna-
not to say that Democrats are to blame.
What are you going to attribute that to? Is it going to be the opioid crisis?
Well, you want to talk about
Is it going to be the opioid
Actually,
crisis
I'm glad
that you
brought
just
that up.
passed a bill to slash funding for treatment of?
All right, let me address
Don't
that. I'm
even
glad he said
begin
that.
to first of all, the Republican Party has no basis for lecturing anybody about moral choices.
Well, of course not, Franklin,
Because you're the party
we're
that
the death
all you
party.
care about is lowering
You're right.
taxes.
We're the
That's
death
all
party.
you care
We're the
about.
death party. And guess what that got us? That got us an assault, an attack, an assassination attempt by your left-wing lunatics that your people are now encouraging.
You're also in no position to be talking
Left-wing
about
lunatic
that
attackers.
as you stoke the fires of these right-wing
Oh, I don't know,
nuts
Franklin. Have
all
we
over
called
the
you all
country.
evil like Elizabeth Warren did? Have we said it's blood money? Have we said, like Hillary Clinton, that we're the death party? All
If
within
we
a
invited
week.
people to the
within
White
a
House who
week,
said the president needs to suck on a machine gun?
Right, within a week of an assassination
not that
attempt
you
by a
cared.
left-wing liberal.
No, not within a... What are you talking about?
The guy that attacked Steve Scalise was a raving left-wing Democrat social
What
liberal.
was the guy who was the rock star you guys invited to the White House
You're
right
talking about
after
Ted
the
Cruz, or
inauguration?
you talking about
Yeah, that one.
You're talking about Ted Nugent,
Yeah.
the flamboyant. What?
The guys you love
Let me
because
point-
he
let me point-
claims that he's going to be leading the
Let me
militia
point
that
something
takes
out to you,
everybody else
Franklin.
out.
Alice Cooper doesn't really behead people in his backyard, even though he acts like that on stage.
No, he just promotes them, just like your Republican
So
Party
now Alice
does.
Cooper sucks too. Is that it?
No, the Republican Party does, with a rampant, rabid hypocrisy.
By the way, it's Obamacare states that expanded Medicaid, that expanded access to prescriptions, that have seen the largest increase in opioid overdoses. So by the same rationale that you use, Obamacare has actually
That's
led to
right,
the
John.
opioid
The
overdose
poorest
deaths of
states
thousands of people.
have the highest
Franklin,
opioid crisis.
what I'm
That
pointing
is
out
true.
to you is we don't traffic in this kind
You
of
don't do anything,
overblown
John, except
rhetoric
say,
that leads
give
to
me my money
disaster.
back. That's all you care about. You don't care about little children. You don't care about old people.
Well, I'm
all
glad
you
brought that
do
up,
is
Franklin,
want your
because
tax
the
cut.
minimum wage that you all pushed through in Seattle has now cost the poorest people in Seattle around $1,200 a year in
And there's
pay.
actually a
Congratulations,
debate- There's
Democrats.
actually a debate to be had there, because what did the research actually show? It showed that when they raised it initially to $11.50, it had no negative impact. It's only when
It's
they went
going-
further it did.
They
So
only
you
went
can
to
make
13,
an argument
Franklin.
that they went
They're
too
going
fast,
all the way to
but
15.
you can't make an argument
Franklin,
that
your
raising
people
the
aren't
minimum
even
wage
done.
hurt people.
They're not even done. They're going up to 15, even though they've
It's
shown
already
that
there, John.
Frank, no, it's not. It's at 13. You might want to read before you say. They stepped it up. These results are from $13 an hour. It's going to 15, and the mayor of Seattle has doubled down and said it's a wonderful success.
Okay.
So you all, with your social adjustment policies, have hurt
By all
the very
means,
people you
cut
said
it
you
back,
wanted to help.
John. Cut it back to $2 an hour. It'd make you happy.
All right, let me say something. In Seattle, what they found out so far is 3% reduction in the number of hours worked is what it's costing. It's they've lost about $125 in earnings a month. These employees have.
The poorest of the poor.
Yes.
Plus the number of jobs open to them have decreased. But we said that on the front end.
Anyway, I'd like to get back to my original question. I ain't forgot what it was, but I'm not sure. But I want to talk about why Obama didn't follow through with the investigation on the Russia hacking, and why he didn't step forward with all these investigations going on and speak up about this. How long has this investigation been going on?
Over a year.
Over a year.
August.
Okay, a year. It's been going on a year, let's say. And
No, actually, the investigation started before that, Franklin. That's when he got actionable intelligence report
Okay.
from the CIA.
but I mean, Do you think Obama should have done something about it when he found out about it, what, 6
I
months
think it's
before
a
the
fair
election?
debate. I think when he went so far as to say that they had hacked the DNC and the Clinton campaign, you guys went nuts and said he was trying to rig the election. Now you're in here harping because he didn't do more.
Actually, we're
about
not
it.
harping. It
Yeah,
was the
you
Washington Post that said it, Franklin, and Representative Adam Schiff,
Oh,
Democrat
and Fox
ranking
News.
member.
Don't forget
Adam,
Fox
let me
News.
read what Adam Schiff
Yeah,
said. You're a
I
Democrat
agree
from
that
California.
It's open for debate, John.
He said it
But
left
the
him
fact
with a
is,
sense
your
of-
party ought to keep its mouth
Well, can
shut.
we-
Because you were jumping up and down.
Well, Franklin,
and the president
wait
said
a minute.
anything
You
at
know
all.
what? If more of your liberal buddies have their way, I guess we'll get shot, so we keep our mouth
The
shut.
answer is it makes no difference what anybody does as long as you guys have somebody to hate.
Because we're blood money. See, that's just, you're doing the same thing, Franklin. Why don't you just put out an invitation for someone to shoot people?
What is this open for debate? I thought we'd have to have another investigation.
Well, that's fine.
I mean, open
Newt
for debate.
Gingrich,
We couldn't
Newt
do that with
Gingrich
Trump.
called yesterday for President Obama to come testify to the Senate about it. Was he the one trying to? Is it okay if he asked for an investigation? Then you're okay with that one?
What are you talking about?
Newt Gingrich said yesterday that President Obama should come testify about that topic.
I think he
So
should.
now, okay, so you want more investigation? We're fine with that.
Actually, our point was, if you're going to
No,
investigate
your point
everybody,
is to score political
no,
points
if you're,
and not find
Franklin,
truth.
You brought up a guy who hadn't worked for the Trump administration in a year and are advocating investigating. He's a private citizen with no connection whatsoever, and you're still railing on it. Now we've got the former president of the United States possibly implicated in putting party and party loyalty over United States security, and you're going, well, you know, it's not that big a deal.
Well, I just can't see how we can
Only
investigate for a year.
demented idiot could have gotten that out of that.
Well, that's what I said about it.
Well,
A demented
if the shoe
idiot.
fits, John.
It does fit you.
The
Thanks.
president didn't come out and say it because he didn't want to appear to be taking a side on that issue in the and you're saying that that's an
I'm
example of
telling you
him
that
trying
the
to
Washington,
favor Hillary?
The Washington Post said that. That's exactly what they said. They're certainly not a friend of Republicans, and certainly not a friend of the Trump administration.
There is no position.
The
John.
Washington
There
Post,
is
Franklin.
No
The
position.
Washington Post.
There is no
Washington
position
Post.
that you won't abandon.
Washington Post.
John.
Washington
there is no
Post.
position
Washington
you've ever
Post.
espoused
Washington
that you want to
Post.
Well, fine. Quote the Washington Post because you love it so much.
No,
right?
I don't. That's my point,
Because
Franklin.
they're
not our
always a
people, and even
horrible
they
news
can't
source
defend it.
till they occasionally
Franklin,
say something
even
again that you
they
dislike.
can't defend Obama on this. Mike Morrell, his own CIA
John,
chief, said it.
John,
you want me to hear
you
Obama's
would-
own
John,
CIA director?
You will embrace anything if it
Former
says something
acting
bad
CIA
about Obama.
director Michael Morrell said that the administration, Obama administration, did next to nothing other than say, "Don't do this."
Okay.
Please.
That's his own CIA saying it, Franklin.
Well, he put sanctions on the Russians.
After the
hold
fact.
on. No, hold on. Well, of course, after the fact. Nobody would do it before the
Actually,
fact. John.
Kerry advocated it before.
And
John
what,
Kerry.
and what happened when your folks got elected? They immediately started talking to the Russians.
We had a
about
Trump
lifting the sanctions.
investigation get started.
Why,
They tried
why
to
did
blame
do
it all
that,
on
Sid?
Trump.
Why before he was even sworn in, were they talking to the Russians about lifting the sanctions that Obama put on them?
Because-
and you people have the
Because
gall to
that's
say he
what
didn't
every
do enough?
administration does, Franklin.
No,
and you
it's
know it.
not what they did,
Actually,
John,
Obama-
and they have no facts.
I told you
unless,
last
of
week.
course, the fix
I
was
told
in.
you last week, Franklin, Obama met with them before his 08, before he even had the nomination.
I repeat, not
Did
one
you
position
investigate
do
him?
you take that you don't switch as
Franklin,
soon as it
I am
matters.
asking you for equality here. Obama did the same thing. By
No,
the way,
he
the
didn't, John.
Russians were meeting with the Hillary Clinton campaign as well. Should we investigate that?
Feel free.
I don't want to because I want to work on jobs. I want to work on
You
things
don't
the
want
public
to work
really.
on jobs. You're not doing anything.
No,
for
because
jobs.
the
If you
difference
wanted to
is,
work
Franklin,
on jobs, you'd be jumping up and down
for
telling
a
these
tax
folks
cut,
to go
which
do-
gives people
Hey,
jobs.
Yeah, right.
I don't think the government ought to be given jobs. That's how you value
a
it.
tax cut for millionaires is
Who
going to
pay-
get more jobs.
Who pay over half of all taxes paid.
while you stick it to people who are lower.
What people would that be? The bottom 50% that pay
People
absolutely
over
no
50
taxes?
who make
No
less than
taxes. They pay
$100,000,
no taxes.
Under $100,000.
Franklin, the
None of
bottom,
those people pay
the bottom
taxes, John.
48%.
There's a reason, John, so many
you wanna hear a
Republican
fact?
governors are opposed to
The
this idiotic
bottom,
idea.
yeah, because they're addicted to federal dollars as well.
That's right, John. No, only you get
$20 trillion in debt,
Only you
Franklin.
understand the problems in the world.
No, Franklin, people understand it, but even Republicans sell out when they get in there. And right now we're $20
like
trillion
you, actually,
in debt.
John, like you,
No,
who've
Franklin.
abandoned all of your positions
What
so you
position?
can
That
go
I'm against
worship
debt?
Comrade
That
Trump.
I'm against debt?
What has Trump done
I'm
wrong?
arguing for
What has
not
he done
wasting
right?
money.
What's Trump done wrong?
What has he done right?
I can't get you tell me what he's done wrong.
He hasn't done anything.
He's done all kinds of things, Franklin.
He's managed to get one Supreme Court justice passed. Okay.
What's the stock market done since
The
his
same
election?
thing it was doing before he took
It's
office.
actually expanded much harder, Franklin. And by the way, if he's done all these things wrong, you would expect the stock market to react and to go down. But it's not. Ask anyone out there, what's your 401k done
wait
now?
a minute, John. You're saying that's your standard for success?
No,
So
I'm
then
saying
you would
that-
have to give Obama an A+ because he had 7 consecutive years.
You're right.
of it.
He did wonderful by Wall Street. All the rich Wall Street bankers
Well, is that,
did great
is that
under
an example
Obama.
that
He
the
did
economic
great.
policies are
Well, I
wrong?
know, Franklin. You said he
tell
was a
me.
great president.
That's the point.
All he did
You
was
just
help Wall
switched
Street.
horses
He
again.
only helped Wall Street,
You just
Franklin.
abandoned your position
He
in
only
mid-sentence.
helped Wall Street.
Mid-sentence, John.
Tell me what Obama did.
Stabilized the economy and kept it from crashing further.
So in other words, it's the slowest economic recovery in the
It's
history
the
of the
longest,
country.
most prolonged
Because
one,
it's
too.
the longest, slowest. Most of them happened much faster. He's the only president in modern history, Franklin, that never had a single year of 3% GDP growth.
I will wager you right now that Donald Trump does not carry out his promise. I'll put that in quotes. He likes to do that. His promise that he's going to have 3% growth every year.
Fine, I'll take that bet.
Okay.
Okay, we got a bet, right?
Sure.
You heard it here first, folks.
What are we betting on?
Well, what Franklin's not realizing is that means 8 years. So 8 years, that's the way we win this bet, 8 years.
So you're saying if he gets 8 years, he'll get 3% growth 1 year? Is that what your
Well,
your
Obama
argument is?
couldn't. Obama couldn't.
Okay.
Worst president in modern history.
What was
for
it?
GDP growth.
What was it the year he took office, John? What
Franklin,
happened then?
he never got it above. Every president in modern history has at least had 1 year above 3%
How many
growth.
presidents
Every single
encountered
president.
as deep a recession?
Franklin,
when he took
it's a
office?
fact. How can you
How
argue
many?
with
Answer
a
the
fact?
question. Can you name one?
Actually, Reagan's was.
No, it wasn't,
Yes,
John.
it was, Franklin.
John, you make these facts up. This is the alternative facts you guys rail about. That is an
Where are you getting your
absolute
information?
bald-faced lie.
You get it from CNN?
No, I didn't get it from CNN.
Okay. I just tried to figure out
Well,
what.
no, you wouldn't get it from CNN because CNN didn't cover that. They spent 350, actually all of them, all the networks spent 353 minutes of airtime, or 55% on the Russia investigation. Only 47 minutes on the Paris Accords, 29 on terrorism, 17 on Obamacare repeal and replace, and 12 minutes on the travel ban. Tax reform garnered just 47 seconds of coverage. So
Is there a
350.
bill for tax reform that we ought to be talking
Franklin,
about? What is the bill?
350.
We got to get rid of the
minutes.
investigation.
What's the bill?
Now that we have no
55
Is there a plan?
55% of
There is no
coverage
plan,
on
John.
an issue that the American
Well,
citizens don't care
You
about.
want them to talk about a
Only
plan you guys
Democrat
haven't even
operatives
come up
care
with
about
yet.
it. Only Democrat operatives and CNN executives care about it.
Why do we have a black caucus?
I guess because they believe there are some issues that are unique to
Can I join?
folks or that.
Can I join?
I don't know. John, can you join the physicians caucus?
Or if I was a
Can you do
congressman,
that?
could I join?
What?
If I was a congressman, could I join?
Join what?
The Black Caucus.
No.
Why not?
I guess because you weren't black.
Well, then that would
Can
be
you
racist.
join the physicians
Well,
caucus?
actually, it's not just
Can
that,
you?
because actually Tim
Or do you
Tim
have to be a
Scott-
physician for that?
Tim Scott wasn't allowed to join, a actual black Republican senator.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. What was the problem?
He's not the right philosophy.
He was a Republican?
It's like all the liberal, for example, Huffington Post just savaged Karen Handel's election down in Georgia, that she's not really a woman because she doesn't have the right positions on the issues. Now, she's a woman, and she's accomplished something, but we can't give her credit for it because it's not actually about women. It's not actually about equality of the races. It's about political ideology.
The reason I brought that up, the Congressional Black Caucus on Wednesday declined an invitation to follow up with a meeting with President Donald Trump.
Sure. Why would you meet with
Blasting
people?
his administration's policies and proposals detrimental to their constituencies. I mean,
Because they've done so much for their constituencies over time.
yeah. Yeah, what have they done?
Well, Obama was one of the worst presidents for
Actually, it
minorities
turns out,
in history.
Just for purposes of the record, that Tim Scott declined to join the Congressional Black Caucus after he was invited to join. But we wouldn't want to screw up a good story with any facts.
Actually, Franklin, I brought that story 2 years ago, and they did finally have to invite him. But
he
they
declined
didn't.
membership
Okay.
after he was invited.
He was invited.
He wasn't
He
born.
was
Actually, I think
invited
he
after
should've-
the issue blew up.
That's a fine point to take.
I think he
The
should've
point is,
divided-
let's not say it's one thing when it's really something else.
He was invited after the issue blew up, Franklin. I mean, you've got a college professor. She's claiming racism now because she was fired from her job for defending a black-only event on campus and said that you whiteys are just boo-hoo-hooing over not being able to attend a black event. Tucker Carlson simply pointed out that to exclude people based on the color of their skin was racist.
Okay.
And she's lost her job. Of course, she's now going to sue the college.
Okay.
And they'll settle with her, keep it out of court.
Well, you had Chuck Todd yesterday. You talk about the news. You had Chuck Todd on Sunday, spent 7 minutes with Bernie Sanders, asked him all kinds of questions. The one question he didn't ask him is about the FBI investigation into Bernie's wife and himself for bank fraud and for using his Senate office to oppress industry. Now, this is the banking industry that he rails against, but his wife is now accused of bank fraud and defrauding the bank out of millions of dollars, running her college into the ground, which is now defunct. But before she left the failing institution, she negotiated a $200,000 buyout of her contract from a failing college that she ran into the ground. Why wouldn't Chuck Todd have asked a single question about that?
Well, because he was doing a story
He
about a
hired
different subject.
Scooter
wasn't he?
Libby's attorney, Franklin. You had the man on
John,
for 7 minutes.
which part are you not listening to?
Here's what I'm telling you.
No,
there is a
no,
bias
there
in the
isn't.
media to the Democrat Party, and they protected Bernie. A Republican would have been skewered on that.
John, which part do you not get?
I get that the media's in the tank for
I
the
am
Democrats.
perfectly fine with them investigating Bernie.
Of course you're perfectly fine because you know they won't do it.
They are investigating. What are you talking about?
Franklin, my point is Chuck Todd had 7 minutes with a leading Democrat Party leader who is under FBI investigation for
What
bank
was the
fraud
topic
and
of the
didn't ask.
interview?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Actually, Franklin, there was no topic. It was Bernie Sanders. He asked all kinds of questions.
He did.
He asked how you feel about the Republicans. How do you feel about this? What about the movement? But he couldn't be bothered to say, what about the FBI investigation for bank fraud?
Okay.
I did watch that, and he was all over the board on
All
questions.
kinds of topics, but not bank fraud.
It was all.
Okay.
It was all to try to put Trump down.
Of course,
Okay.
but not bank fraud. All you Bernie, feel the burn people that say Bernie's going to put those bad old bankers in place. Yeah, after he defrauds them for millions of
so
dollars.
you already know the outcome of the investigation now. Is that right?
I don't know, Franklin.
No,
I
you just
know
said that.
She
Do you
lied
know
on the loan
something-
application.
Do you know something that we don't?
She lied on the loan
Well,
application.
he wasn't interviewing his wife. We're talking about him.
He used his supposedly, allegedly.
Ah,
he
so now
used
you're
his
saying you
Senate
don't
office
actually know.
to pressure the. Well, we won't know unless we get a full investigation.
Well, aren't
And
the
if no one
Republicans
ever
in charge of that?
No, actually,
What's
Franklin,
holding them up?
The FBI is in charge of it, and they're
Okay.
supposed to be nonpartisan.
Isn't Jeff Sessions the head of that?
Yeah, but here's the point.
You don't
Franklin.
think he'll do a fair investigation?
I do.
Okay, then
Unlike
what's your
the previous
issue?
administration.
What's your issue?
My issue is with
Why
the
don't you
Fifth
just let him
Estate.
do his investigation
My issue is with the Fifth
and
Estate.
then come out and see
the
what
Fifth
happens.
Estate, the press. My issue is with the press,
Okay.
who's in the tank for the Democrats.
Okay.
What do you think the future of the press is going to be? You know, White House has cut back their meetings because they couldn't get the news to the press and get a fair, balanced outcome from it. So,
It takes a special kind of gall to repeatedly tweet information about unnamed sources, complaining of, use them in your tweets, and then send your representative out to complain that the media cites unnamed sources.
Well, follow up with what you...
The president does it constantly, and then sends somebody out to say, y'all shouldn't be running stories with unnamed sources.
I've heard him talk about...
He does it constantly.
No, I've heard him talk about unnamed sources, but he's repeating articles in the Times say when he says it.
CNN especially.
And CNN.
And New York Times.
He's coming back from them saying...
Franklin, did you see the hidden video of the CNN producer?
Yes, and those people got fired, didn't they?
No, this is a completely different. This is CNN. You're talking about the people that produce. No,
the video about the story that the people got fired on, right?
Well, the point is, it's a CNN producer talking about why they cover Russia. Here's a quote from a CNN producer undercover. I just feel like they don't really have it, but they want to keep digging. And so I think the president is probably right to say, like, look, you are witch hunting me. Like, you have no smoking gun. You have no real proof. Just to give context, President Trump pulled out of the climate accords for a day, and for a day and a half, we covered the climate accords. And then the CEO of CNN, Jeff Zucker, said in our internal meeting, he said, good job, everybody, covering the climate accords, but we're done with that. Let's get back to Russia. That's a CNN producer admitting that even the CNN president is directing this to make sure they hammer the Russian story, which is absolutely no facts whatsoever.
What happens to the Russian story now?
Well, they'll continue to cover it. I mean, I just gave you the numbers. 55% of all coverage was on the Russia story, which we have, to this date, after a year of investigation, absolutely zero evidence of any collusion.
Well, now that it came out that that Obama knew about all this, what are they investigating?
Well, now they're probably going to have to investigate why Obama didn't take action. Even some of the own Democrats have boxed themselves into the point where they have to go, well, you know what? Obama did know about this, and that's the Washington Post's own conclusion.
4 or 5 months of this investigation were simply trying to determine who was responsible for the hacks and who was
Well, who was it?
Well, it turns out the Russian government was.
Okay, so what now?
All right.
What do we do?
Why do you honestly think that if the Russian government specifically targets one campaign and tries to hurt one campaign in an election, that's not something we ought to be investigating seriously?
Yes, but not collusion.
They didn't spend the money on their system to keep people out of it. And then they found out they were getting hacked.
What about the 31 election commissions around the country that also got hacked? We now know. Should we be investigating that?
No, wait. That's what you people do, Franklin. None of them were hacked. None of them were hacked.
No, John. You're going to mix up the issues again.
None of them were hacked. None of the 31 were hacked.
No, John. Get it straight.
Jay Johnson, your own DHS secretary, said none were hacked.
You're lying. Here's what the facts are. The facts are that the databases got hacked. The vote tabulation systems, they think, did not get hacked.
You didn't say that, did you, Franklin?
Yes, they did.
No, you didn't say that.
No, because
you put out on the air hacked, and you know what that does to the public. You know exactly what you're doing.
I meant hacked. They were hacked.
No vote totals were touched.
I didn't say that, John. This is the point.
That's the point. You didn't say it. You're right. You didn't say it.
No,
Franklin. I'm not going to inflame the issue for partisan reasons.
Marco Rubio says, wait a minute. We ought to investigate this because next time it could be us.
Franklin,
you ought to take that seriously.
You said the first couple of months were dedicated to finding out
I said the first 4 or 5 months.
All right. I don't know when you're talking about.
And since we're only talking about 10 months.
Franklin, in early August, a courier from the CIA delivered an eyes-only envelope to the White House and was instructed to show to only 4 people, President Obama and 3 senior aides. Inside, it detailed Russian President Vladimir Putin's direct involvement in a cyber campaign to disrupt and discredit the U.S. presidential race. What did Obama do in early August?
He thought Clinton was winning.
Months before the election.
He directed them to get.
He did nothing.
He directed them to get.
Mike Morrell, his own CIA people, said he did next to nothing.
Okay.
His own CIA director said next to nothing.
All right. Back to your corners. We got to take a break.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we pay the most because we buy the best. And we make selling your car to us as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, bring your car, truck, or SUV to one of our stores. 2, we'll give you a free appraisal with no obligation. 3, sell us your car. It's that easy. At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we buy the best. We sell the best, and we pay the most. Visit us in Cleveland, Dayton, or Chattanooga, or go to buyheresellhere.com. That's buyheresellhere.com. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Hey folks, Glenn here from U.S. Money Shops. If you think all pawn shops are dark and dreary, then you haven't been to U.S. Money Shops. From hard-to-find items to unique jewelry to the latest in electronics, we have it. And guns, we have a huge selection of guns in a variety of colors from a variety of manufacturers. And when you buy any gun at U.S. Money Shops, you get a box of ammo and a case absolutely free. So come see what I'm talking about. Any of our 12 U.S. Money Shops locations in Tennessee and Georgia. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Buy yourself a car today. The better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Are you unhappy with your current television service provider? Whether you're on cable or a direct TV satellite system, we'll call Tech-Centric Installation. That's Dennis at Tech-Centric Installation, 2398 Blue Springs Road, right here in Cleveland. He is now your local retailer for Dish Network. Why call another state or sign up from some telemarketer calling from who knows where when you can talk to someone right here in Cleveland, shake his hand, meet him, set an appointment, find out why his 15 years of experience will create the perfect package for you. Don't pay too much and don't have to pay more down the road. Dish Network right here in your backyard with packages starting at only $55 a month with HBO free for 12 months with a 2-year price lock. So if you want to get your new updated, great state-of-the-art television service package, get it right here from Dish Network now with your own local person in Dennis Powell, or we call him Dish Dr. Dennis at Tech-Centric Installation, 2398 Blue Springs Road. Call him now, 834-9933. That's 834-9933. Ask for Triple D. That's Dish Dr. Dennis for your Dish Network home entertainment needs. 834-9933. Call Dennis at Tech-Centric Installation.
Why would you put up with a heating and cooling system that cycles on and off when you can have quiet, true comfort, variable speed by train? It runs at low speeds with continuous little adjustments to keep your home comfortable and quiet. It's always been hard to stop a train. Now, it's hard to hear one.
When you want an unconventionally efficient heating and air unit that keeps your home right in the comfort zone, day in and day out, nothing will do but a train. To get the best train service, call your local train comfort specialist. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. Keeping you comfortable is Mechanical Systems' only business, and they've been providing high-quality service and installation for more than 30 years. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. That's 336-5739.
It's hard to stop a train.
Financial Recovery, licensed and bonded collection agency, located right here in Cleveland, Tennessee. Give them a call at 423-473-7670. Small town service with big city results. A full service medical, commercial, retail, and individual collection service. Celebrating 10 years in business. Call Financial Recovery at 423-473-7670 to help you with your accounts receivable and past due invoices. Financial Recovery, 423-473-7670. Matthews Pool and Spa Company, located in Cleveland, Bradley County for over 45 years. You know them. They're your new swimming pool construction and supply company in Cleveland, Tennessee, now with 4 generations of Matthews to serve you. Matthews Pool and Spa Company, for over 45 years, your swimming pool, construction and supply company, spa or hot tub installation and maintenance. Get all of your supplies for your pool or spa right now. That's the new location in the old Quinn Electric Company building behind KFC at 2724 Keith Street in Cleveland. Call Matthews now, 476-4521. You better get your order in now for your new pool construction for this spring and summer. 476-4521. Matthews Pool and Spa Company. Gonna jump in. Woo!
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on WOOP FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
And we're back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back for round 2. Let's get started. What do you think about the solar wall we're talking about building now?
I thought it was great.
Well, I think that's delightful political humor. It turns out there's not even a prototype of this wall, so it's not getting built anytime soon.
There wasn't a prototype for a solar panel until the first one was developed.
You think Bakker might...
Well,
look, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a great idea to combine
it turns out that Tesla has something they could use to build that. But
look, this is not funny. If you're going to build a wall anyway, you're going to have this giant project.
I think it's great.
You can kill two birds with one stone.
I think it's
That's
great.
the kind of out of the box thinking that doesn't happen in government very often.
I think it's a great idea. I think Trump's just brilliant.
Well, no, I'm not going to say that. I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea.
I eagerly await.
Look, right now, as we speak, you can buy solar shingles for your house.
Yeah,
that's right.
So if you could put solar shingles on a house, the problem here is normally a bureaucratic process would not have come up with that idea. Because someone has to take a chance to throw it out there so people like Franklin, who think they know more than everyone else, can criticize it. Huh?
Who came up with it?
I don't know who came up with it.
Tesla.
They came up with putting it on the wall?
They developed the solar-powered shingles.
But somebody has to take.
And they did it with government support.
But somebody has to take
a
a stand, actually, and they don't need it selling a $106,000 base model car. They didn't need government support.
Actually, they did.
Okay.
Why?
Elon Musk is launching his own spaceships into space.
Because that support allowed them to develop the products.
Did Elon Musk have enough money to finance it himself?
Essentially created a new industry.
Did he have the money to finance it himself? Yes. But government taxpayers were forced to do it.
Yeah.
He could have done it himself.
So you don't think the private free enterprise system works?
It works in many, many, many cases. There are areas where it doesn't necessarily work when there are people who have vested interests in unlimited lobbying budgets to try and keep other competitive industries down.
I'm sure the horse and buggy industry did when the cars were fledgling?
I suspect that
cars were fledgling,
but it's
Franklin.
a little different now.
It's not any different at all. That's what's so bad. You all never learn from any economic history.
Well, you couldn't take your congressman.
We created the greatest,
to Indonesia,
Franklin, we created the greatest nation in the world prior to 1900 without any government subsidies of industries. No government subsidies, and we became the leader of the free world.
Now, we've got this charging station out here at Cracker Barrel, and all I see is it taking up a parking spot.
Well, you're going to see a lot more of that. India has announced, which, by the way, in 12 years is projected to be the largest country in the world in terms of population. By 2030, their goal is for more than 50% of the cars sold in India to be electric powered. When you've got that kind of market taking over, that's happening in China too. It's going to be a wholesale makeover.
What's the average trip in India?
I don't know the answer to that, John.
I don't either, but I will venture a guess that the average trip in India is across town.
Okay.
For the billion
That's
people
the
that
average
live there.
trip
The
in
average
Cleveland,
trip,
too, John, is across
But
town.
Franklin, we are a
What is that
completely
point?
different culture, different society, and what works in one culture and one society doesn't necessarily work somewhere else. And guess what? Free marketplaces figure that out. Governments don't.
The point I'm making is you're going to see a revolution in the automobile industry that in large part deals with electrification of those
Why don't we
cars.
just have solar cars?
Well, because the technology isn't available yet. It might one day be.
Franklin, do you know who invented these solar shingles?
I don't know who invented them. I know who has perfected them.
I doubt it, because Dow Chemical is who did it, and they had no government support.
Okay.
North Korea. What's going on with them right now?
Disaster. It's a disaster with Trump in office. It would have been a disaster with Hillary in office.
I mean, there is no good answer. That's the problem. And anybody who says there is
I think the posture of the Trump administration is different from the posture of the Clinton administration, and I think
that's a fair debate to have. But whether it affects the policy or not,
he's right. The problem is, and of course, this was the problem with the Iran deal that Obama signed. Once they get a nuclear weapon, it completely changes the game and the possible moves you can make on the board. And that's why we should have had a much harder line on Iran.
I listened to a really good interview the other day with Bill Richardson. He's got a foundation, if you will, that has kind of been the go-to party that all the administrations have utilized for negotiations with North Korea over some of these hostages they've taken. And he basically said, up until this guy came into power, as crude as it may be, it was just a naked attempt by them to get some foreign currency into their country, and that they would negotiate these things. Somebody would send some humanitarian assistance in, and they would release them. This guy, he says, frankly, is deranged.
They were all deranged.
Well,
I guess it's just a matter of degrees.
Sure. And he was saying, we need to be tough on them, hard on them, but don't let anybody tell you that they know what's going to happen.
Yeah, here's the problem. Let me extrapolate out what you just said, Franklin. If he's that deranged, then it's even more important that we develop these interceptors that can stop these missiles, the very thing that a lot of the peaceniks on the left side of the political spectrum are against us doing. The new liberal socialist type government in South Korea doesn't want the interceptors that would actually shoot down the missiles that a deranged person has a higher probability of launching.
Because they realize they're the first people most likely to get hit, and they have a different view about that.
It's crazy.
But they're entitled to their view. I mean, it's not an irrational statement. It's a debate that we ought to have.
You can't.
Their view is the development of them, it makes him more likely to use them. I understand the argument, whether it's the right one or not.
Okay.
While we're developing them, is he more likely to use them? That's the question. And if you're the population that's going to get fried by it, it's a fair thing to talk about.
Washington State and California and Oregon ought to be concerned about this.
I didn't say
and Japan and Hawaii.
I didn't say we shouldn't debate the issue. I just said it's not irrational for them to have that concern and discussion. I don't know why you would say it is.
Because a country like North Korea, with the history of aggression, who is now helmed by an even more delusional leader, is not someone that you should ever show any softness towards. But like I said, liberals never learn.
What are we going to do about him?
I don't know what you can do about him. And once again, like I said, once he has a nuclear weapon, I don't know what you do. If it were me, I'd be trying to track his existence every chance I got and kill the little.
You think we aren't trying to track him?
Well, the point is, are we trying to track him just so we keep up with him, or are we trying to track him so we can get the crosshairs locked on? You know, for example, Black Hawk helicopters, I saw yesterday, since '84, they have had laser tracking devices on them to guide the bombs. They now have laser weapons on them that can destroy vehicles, can actually be dialed down to hurt but not kill humans. I'm waiting for us to have one of those on a satellite, and one day he steps out and looks up at the sun, and we fry him into a little pile of ash.
What do you think, Franklin?
Okay. You know, John makes these statements like, you know, he's got the answer. Okay.
Franklin, if I had told you 5 years ago that tanks and airplanes and helicopters and ships would have laser weapons that could blow things up on them, you'd go, I've been watching too much Star Wars.
No,
it's a reality right today on the battlefield.
I wouldn't say that. I think, like a lot of these countries, that you have to be careful with what you get in return for what you do. Do you know what will follow him? I don't know.
Couldn't be worse.
Well, I don't know if that's true or not. And frankly,
by the way,
neither do you.
Well, let me put it to you this way. If I were president and I were going to fry his little butt, I'd have every one of his nuclear missile silos locked in as well, and I'd fry them in the silos at the same time.
Are you confident in what the Chinese reaction will be? Do you know?
I really don't care.
Well, you really do care.
No, actually, I don't, Franklin. That's one of our problems here. The Chinese don't care what we do. The Russians don't care what we do. There's a certain amount, to be honest, of bravado and faith that has to go into these kind of moves. And when you're scared of your own shadow, like the previous Democrats have been, you don't take any actions.
John, I haven't heard a lot of Republicans out there advocating for what you just said.
You had one called Ronald Reagan in the 80s, and he brought the collapse of the Soviet Empire.
Tell me which foreign leader he targeted for assassination.
Franklin.
Tell me which one.
Gaddafi. He sent cruise missiles in, blew up the presidential palace. Gaddafi happened to be living in a tent on the yard.
Okay, did he follow up and get it done then?
Guess what, Franklin?
Did he?
He didn't have to at that point. Gaddafi crawled in his hole and didn't come out for 5 years, and every other world leader knew he was willing to do it.
Gaddafi got the message. I think
the world got the message.
Gaddafi's son was killed during that.
He was.
Yeah.
The world got the message. So you asked for an example. There you go. Hey, I don't know what else you've got on your list, but you do realize that they passed the A and B commissioner spot in the county commission.
Last week, didn't
Yeah.
Well, no, we talked about them bringing it up. It passed.
Well, what do you? I know you talked about it. You thought that was a good idea, and I think we all agreed that would be a good idea.
It takes effect this next election.
It's going to change a few things, I think, with our local elections.
It will. And I will say this, I didn't realize this. Talked to one of the commissioners last night, and they had to go to that when apparently when the county hits 125,000.
Oh, really?
So they were going to have to do it eventually.
So that's what pushed it over the top, you think?
Well, I will tell you,
So
that
10 more years.
That was an aside. That commissioner made that as an aside. And I think this is a really good thing. I had a couple of the commissioners make the case. They said, well, some of the commissioners that were against it said, well, what are you going to do if someone runs against you? And I had several commissioners say, if someone runs against me in my district and they beat me, then that means that's what the people in my district wanted.
That's right.
And that's an honorable position on their part.
You liked it too, didn't you, Franklin?
I have mixed feelings about it.
Now,
I'm not opposed to it.
Commissioner Yarber said that in the open meeting, but I had several other commissioners express that as well.
All right, I want to calm y'all down. I don't want any yelling during this next little segment. I just want us to talk through some things. What have we got to do to get this Obamacare healthcare situation taken care of? Now then, we pretty much figured out that this is going to fall back to the states to take care of the people in the state with some federal help. Am I right?
I don't know. That's one of the proposals.
That's some of the Senate concept.
But what have we got to do to make this thing work so we can move on to tax reform?
Well, I told you several weeks ago that there were a couple of interesting Republican ideas out there that I thought had some merit, that I thought would have the stabilizing effect that we talked about.
All right. Let me say something. I'm not yelling at Franklin at all. He has not done this. What he just said is very reasonable. One of the things you've got to do, and Franklin, it's not on our side. You've got to get people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren to quit saying that a Republican proposal is blood money and evil. You can't have a dialogue when you throw language like that around.
I think there are Republicans in the Senate in particular who are prepared to roll up their sleeves, sit down with Democrats, and try to find a compromise.
But Franklin, you understand that if someone goes on the TV news and says you're evil for doing that, it's hard.
Now, when the majority leader of the Senate gives a press conference yesterday and says he has no plans to even talk to Democrats, you know, he owns the bill and he's got to deal with it. I don't see how it's going to pass at this point.
Well, when the Congressional Black Caucus turns down a meeting with the president,
I disagree with that.
That's tit for tat. And I'll give Franklin, he has to give you that. I mean, both of those people are wrong to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
But here's the problem for the majority leader, Franklin. I'm not defending. I agree with you. They ought to sit down. But when he gets people, leaders like Warren, and they're not official leaders, but they're certainly the heads of the party, when they say it's blood money, when they say you're evil, when they say millions of people are going to die at your hands, it's very hard to sit down with that person.
It cost them a lot in the elections.
Let me give you ask about what are the problems, and I would hope Franklin would agree with this. The way this thing is situated, it's very difficult to ever rein in a government program. Right now, the way it works, Mississippi, for instance, gets $3 from the federal government for every $1 it spends. Where is the incentive for Mississippi to economize that program, to cut spending on that? The way this Senate proposal works, you have a per capita funding formula. That's one of the main things about it.
I know about that.
Now, let me read this to you. The president's per capita.
That was TennCare.
The president's what it does is it changes that formula to where they don't get more money for more money they spend.
Okay.
So it actually tries to rein that in. But this is a quote. The president's per capita proposal responds to the pleas of those who want more cost discipline in Medicaid without terminating the guarantee of basic health and long-term care for 36 million Americans. Do you know who said that? Democrat Congressman Henry Waxman, liberal congressman, about Bill Clinton's program in the 90s to do exactly the same thing.
But that was a single-payer plan.
No, that was his per capita proposal is all he was talking about.
Well, TennCare is what Clinton was proposing.
TennCare was the model for national health care.
And because of Al Gore, it was brought to Tennessee to try. And you've heard me talk about the old days when I was with Credit Bureau Services. I wanted to provide a service to the TennCare providers because they were all talking about, it was in the news, people from Arkansas and Georgia and Alabama.
And NFL football players.
Everywhere were coming and getting signed up.
They were getting heart transplants.
Well, what happened was, on the per diem per day, the TennCare providers, they didn't want to find the fraud. They were getting paid for it. If you found where they're coming across, they lost money. I mean, so.
Well, first off, when you say if you found where they were coming across, under the original TennCare, there wasn't a crime there. If you moved to Tennessee, you immediately got to sign up and get your health care, including heart transplants.
I don't know what we've got to do to move on, but I know this. The tax reform that we're all hoping for, that'll come quickly, is taking a lot longer to get started because of this health care issue. They don't want to get into tax reform until we get this health care deal.
Well, you have to get the deficit exploding Obamacare off the books before you can do tax reform. Look, Franklin, you can respond to this. This is just a fact. And you say what you want to say. Traditionally, before Obamacare, federal government paid more money to the poor states than the rich states, with a match ranging from around 75% for the poor state, which again was Mississippi, to 50% for the rich states. Under Obamacare, everything was 100% for everyone. And so what that actually did was it transferred money, federal dollars, from the poorest states who need it the most to the rich states. Address that, Franklin.
Well, that's okay.
That's a fact.
All right.
That actually took money away from the people that needed it the most.
It didn't take money away. It just increased spending.
Franklin, if you have a state like Mississippi with the highest level of poor people, and they got more federal dollars to help those people, and you take money from Mississippi and you send it, for example, to, I don't know, New York State or a state that was much wealthier and had a lower population of poor people, you took money away from those poor people. You actually damaged their health care outcomes.
Okay.
Under Obamacare.
Well, let's back up here. First of all, the effect of Obamacare on the deficit is negligible. And the reason why is because Obamacare had taxes in it that paid for it. Whether you like the taxes or you think we should have done it's a separate issue.
Franklin, taxes and debt they're not really different. I either owe the money or you took the money from me. Both ways it came out of my pocket.
My point is that even the most conservative projections for Obamacare showed that it had added about $100 billion to the deficit over the day.
But it increased
over
taxes. There's no difference, Franklin.
Yes, there is when we're talking about deficits, John.
Well,
you have revenue and you have spending.
Outside of the interest cost, the taxpayer still had to pay for all of it.
Sure, John.
Whether they paid for it in the form of debt or they paid for it in the form of taxes.
That's true with roads and military and everything else the government spends money on.
For example,
hold on. I'm simply saying to you that the argument you're making about Obamacare, there are lots of things you can criticize about Obamacare and have a factual basis for. But the argument that it was just exploding the debt doesn't hold water, because that's not a fact.
There's only so much taxes that the
I mean,
American people can bear.
if you look at what is proposed in the Senate bill, what you find is there's a reduction in Medicaid spending over what's required under Obamacare, the current law, and with it, a tax cut. All right? So, by the same reasoning, the reason it doesn't have a horrible impact on the deficit is because you cut the spending at the same time. You can do that if you want to.
Every time we've cut taxes, total revenue actually goes up to the government, and the economy rebounds.
I don't want to have that debate
Franklin,
again.
let me read you a fact.
Because you never talk about the whole story.
West Virginia, for example, under Obamacare, received 7 times as much federal money for spending $1 on an able-bodied adult than it did for spending $1 on a disabled person. That incentivized spending money on people that...
Well, disabled people already had a plan.
You're missing the point, Franklin. This actually diverted money away from the original intended beneficiaries of Medicaid. That's what we're saying. When you expanded these poverty rolls to 138% of the poverty level, and you allowed able-bodied adults to go on Medicaid, you diverted money away from the widows, orphans, and handicapped people that was originally meant to be cared for by Medicaid. So Obamacare has actually hurt the poorest of the poor. And this Senate bill reverses that. It says if you're 138% of the poverty level and you're an able-bodied adult, we're going to phase that out. That's what it does. It phases it out.
Okay.
Well, folks, if you...
And the answer to that is really simple, John, and this is a philosophical difference. The philosophical difference is we think those folks, by and large, can't get access to health care.
Well, why 138? Why not 150? Why not 200?
Okay.
Why not 250% of the poverty
Agreed.
level?
You have to draw the line somewhere.
Well, we used to draw the line at poor women, children, and handicapped people who can't work. That's where the line was.
We used to let old people fend for themselves. We made a decision as a nation to do it differently. That's a decision we have to make. Whether it's the right one or the wrong one, we can argue about until the cows come home.
Well, I can tell
but
you,
it's still a decision that has to be made.
I can tell you that in the states where they did the Obamacare expansion, they saw a much higher increase in the opioid problem because of the access to the money. So, Franklin, is that an unintended consequence?
Not clear.
Actually, it's completely clear. I'll read it to you.
It's not clear that that's the cause of that issue.
No, my point is, Franklin,
we didn't expand it here, and we've had a huge increase in opioid.
You're right.
No, hold on. We didn't expand Medicaid at all in Tennessee, and we lead the nation in prescription drugs. And a huge part of that's opioids. So you can't really say it's got anything to do with expansion of Medicaid.
Could it be the doctors writing too many prescriptions?
Maybe so, but it wasn't Medicaid expansion that caused it, and that was his argument.
What do you think caused those prescriptions to be written?
It's a fair question.
All right, let me read it to you. Rates of overdose in Medicaid expansion and holdout states. Because we have a wonderful example, because about half the states expanded Medicaid and half didn't. So the rates of overdose were very, very similar prior to 2010 and then diverged right around the ACA passage, with the states that expanded Medicaid seeing a much higher increase in opioid overdose. Now, Franklin, here's my point. As a Republican, if I were playing the game the way the Democrats are playing it right now, I would say that Democrats that voted for the expansion, Democrat and Republican governors who did the expansion, have the overdose deaths of thousands of people on their hands, the blood on their hands. Okay. I'm not going to do that. And that's my point, and I think that was Steve's point. This is a really complicated, difficult issue. You need to get your people to come to the table and quit calling us murderers and saying we have blood on our hands if you want to have a serious discussion.
Here's what I've heard for 8 years. I haven't heard a single Republican come out and say, we need to fix what's wrong with Obamacare.
That's because we don't think it can be fixed, because Obamacare is not our lifeblood. Health care is. Okay. This isn't about Obama and his legacy. It's about health care.
Then, John, all we're saying is if the approach you take is constantly, we've got to remove this program that we think is actually helping a lot of people, whether you agree or not.
We don't.
Well,
and the voters
tell
voted
that to
for someone
somebody who
the
doesn't
voters
have a
voted
lifetime
for
limit
someone
now.
who said it wasn't
Tell
helping
that
them.
to somebody who's
The
got
voters
coverage now
elected
that they
a
couldn't have
Congress who ran on the fact that it's not helping people. Franklin, I'll give you a perfect
it's
example.
like this former Republican Congressman Jolly yesterday, who came out and said, I ran and campaigned against Obamacare and I was violently opposed to it. I got voted out of Congress, and 6 months later, I got a life-threatening diagnosis that I'm going to be dealing with for 25 years. And I now understand the value. I'm able to go out and get insurance, but they can't bar me from it now.
But Franklin,
I understand that better
the point
now.
Is, that's not the point. The point is there were other ways to do it.
John,
let me ask you a
come
question.
up with some ways that solve those issues.
I'll give
and
you
we'll
a
talk
perfect
about
example. The Democrats are claiming, tell me how horrible are the cuts to Medicaid that the Republican proposal puts forward?
Well, they're pretty dramatic over what's projected to be spent right now.
All right, but they're cuts, right?
They're cuts over the spending that's required under the
So
code
what
law.
you're legally saying is it's not an actual cut.
No, I'm not saying
Well,
that.
let me read it to you. Let me read it to you.
That's not-
There are no actual cuts in Medicaid in the GOP. Let me read it to you, Franklin. Today, federal Medicaid spending is $389 billion. Under the GOP reforms, it will increase to about $500 billion in 2027. These are only reductions in the amount of
what
increase.
will be the spending if it doesn't pass?
That's my point, Franklin.
No.
That's not a cut. That's a reduction in the growth. It's still growing. And for the Democrats to come out and tell the public and for the press to allow it to stand that the Republicans are slashing Medicaid is effectively a lie, even though it's not
Republicans have come out
technically.
and said that that's disingenuous.
It's
at
effectively
best.
a lie.
All right, break it up. I've got a couple of announcements to make. Next week is around the 4th of July weekend, so we're going to take off next week from and have a little vacation. And also we have some other trips that have to be made and some things to do. So we're going to take a couple of weeks off from live Backfire, but we're going to have some of our better shows to bring back to you.
I guess I
hopefully in
won't
a
get to
recording.
select those, will I?
Yeah. We'll be happy to let you select them.
Let me get. I'm going to predict it's election day this year.
Anyway, folks, we'll see you in a couple of weeks live again. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Frank